And welcome, Akanksha. So I think we already got your approval for recording this meeting and also sharing the recording later to internally and externally on YouTube and through our channels. So I met Akanksha during one of the industry events for design strategy. And frankly, we had some good conversations. We and she had a very good um, thought piece which she had presented. And I thought it would be good for her to share with the extended audience, with especially the Lazadians who are also listening in to this session, that, how they introduce experience strategy for projects of all different sizes, whether it's big or small, at the Expedia group. So that's when I approached her, and she thankfully and very graciously agreed to support us. So Akanksha has been a design leader with more than 15 years of experience, and has been leading teams since across different sizes of companies, so startups and large-scale global organizations. She is currently with Expedia, but she has been, in the past few years, she has been leading design teams, and she and her team obviously have been able to solve some very meaty and complex user problems, both by enhancing the existing experience and also by turning products and features from zero to one to infinity, as we say, and beyond. Apart from working on design experiences, her role involves also the creation of design org plans, and also obviously evolving the team culture and hiring for large-scale multidisciplinary teams. So today she will be taking us through how she has used her knowledge in these teams, especially for experience strategy for these different types of organizations and different roles in different projects. And just a note for anyone who is joining this call through Zoom, please keep yourself muted, and also keep your video off and your microphone off. And what you can do is right at the end of the session, you can put in all your questions in the chat function of Zoom, and when you do that, we will answer all those questions. We'll take all those questions at the end of the session, where Akanksha will answer your questions. Now, just a note, this session might end up being more than 1 hour, so please feel free to stay on after 1 hour, and the question and answer can happen after 1 hour. Just note on that. We also have the Chinese interpretation function, so which means that there is Willie on the call, and Willie is doing our Chinese translations. So if you go to the More button or the globe icon, depending on which kind of OS you are using, you will find that there is the Chinese function, the Chinese language. You can see the interpretation function, where you can choose Chinese. Recommend to mute the original audio, otherwise you can hear both English and Chinese at the same time, and it's very confusing. So yeah, that's basically just the very, very basic instructions. And over to you, Akanksha. Thanks for supporting us again. And Harris will be also live streaming this internally within Lazada. And thanks everyone, and thanks Akanksha again.
Thank you, Sanchita. And needless to say, thanks. I'm really thrilled to kind of share whatever I can, like from whatever I've learned in the leadership experience at Expedia, and how design can play a front and center role in building up and kind of contributing to the product strategy as well. And I think experience strategy is a huge part of it. Just quickly talking about my role in Expedia. So I am the design leader for insurance and assurance products in Expedia. So my team is based in India, Jordan, and US. And yeah, we work very closely with the product leaders and tech leaders to kind of make all of these experience strategies a reality. I've been with Expedia since past 6 years, so definitely a lot of changes and in the way that company and the org operates, and how I operate as a design leader in those changes. So definitely all of these projects are coming from that perspective as well, that how we kind of changed. You'll see a lot of changes in the way we approach projects, and I'll be sharing 3 projects with you that kind of helped shape the way that business is looking at that particular initiative, and how we, sort of constructively contributed as a design team on those initiatives at a more strategic level. So yeah, before further ado, I can just quickly share my screen. Second. Are you all able to see my screen?
Yes, can.
Okay. Awesome. So just to begin, I think I want to kind of add a short story. So when I entered Expedia around 5 years back, I entered into a team where we had already set goals, and we were trying to march towards certain KPIs that we wanted to achieve. And then we had a bunch of like backlog items from a product perspective. So we were trying to, I think I remember that we were trying to close in the gap and improve engagement on filters within the cars path. And we had a bunch of tests lined up for improving filters overall. And when I entered in, all of those tests kind of made sense. Like, of course, something that I felt that yes, kind of these holistically kind of makes sense to kind of look at. But the entire team really didn't know what we are heading towards. Like, we were trying a bunch of things, failing at few, winning at few, and we didn't know what directionally we wanted the experience to shape as. We didn't have a common vision in that direction, and in the lack of a common vision, we were trying too many things, and failing at many of them. So didn't have a common sort of understanding and benchmarking towards like what we wanted to achieve. So I sat with the product director, and like sort of said, okay, I think we need an experience strategy and a little bit of a Northstar vision on filters as a whole. How can we, what do we see this feature evolving towards in the next year or so, maybe? And 1 second. I got a very weird reaction, because apparently the team had not worked with experience strategy. They had heard about a lot of product strategy, but like, how would experience strategy fit into it? Why do we need a vision to get into the view? And why are all the tests that we are doing right now are like, how are they not telling a story? That was something like I felt, and kind of made me realize that there was a need to break some biases and perceptions within my own team around experience strategy and the role it can play in really propelling the business forward. It's not just about propelling what traveler wants. It's also about like, how can we make money, right? So I think my journey here on in Expedia has been, how can we have design really positively contribute towards business, and at the same time have the traveler or a user-centric voice on the table, and how that can help us achieve some of the goals. In my experience and role that I've been in various organizations, I feel that the value of building an experience strategy is twofold. One is a direct value, and another is more indirect. Now, the direct value is that, of course, it helps the overall team understand and commit to a future version of the product. This is where we are heading to. This is where we want this product to be. It also helps create an evolving document that can answer the question of what's next. I would say experience strategy is not anything in thin air. It's a document. It's a visual living and breathing, evolving document that can help all of us answer that question. And it really tells a very compelling story. Like if there is any leadership presentation, meeting, if you want to tell, the CEO that where we want this particular product or experience to go, and having an experience strategy really helps us tie that story together from a business as well as from a user standpoint. There are also indirect, we have realized through these years that there are also indirect benefits of building an experience strategy. One is, I think it definitely helps growing the UX maturity of the teams. UX maturity is a term that I got to know about while leading teams, that not all teams are probably at the same level of understanding the value of design, that the design can play in propelling the product strategy forward. And how can we use design as a lever to really make a positive impact in terms of telling a positive story, in terms of telling a compelling story to the business. So I think it really helped us as a team to kind of do this. It really brings people together and breaks silos, because no experience strategy can be built alone in isolation without the partnership of product or engineering or program or the stakeholders that we have, that we closely work with. And it also instills a sense of ownership on that vision. This is like we speak a common language and we start talking about it. And it really helps that build that culture of ownership, accountability, and togetherness, I feel. So that has been what my experience has been in building this together with everyone in the team. And, I think the first step towards building any experience strategy, which is table stakes, is one, understanding what is our business and what is its goal. And I know a lot of times designers focus a lot on user needs. We focus a lot on what the motivations of users are. All of that is really also table stakes. Definitely this is the role, this is our job, this is what we are meant to do. But how can we as designers also understand business and its goal and marry these two, I would say, thought process together, and these two kind of tenets together? So ask yourself, do you know answers to some of these questions? What is your business model? How are we earning money? What commission do we make? Probably, how do we sell products? What are our partners? Who are our partners? What are the motivations of our partners? Why do they partner with us? And what are the challenges that our business face to expand further to other markets, to other brands, and so on and so forth? What are some of the legal nuances of the product that we associated? And this was big for us because I work in a product that is an insurance and assurance product at Expedia. Insurance products are very legally bound. And how can we understand those legal nuances as a design team to really build a strategy that is not going in a different direction altogether, right? And then what is our business trying to optimize for? What is our attach rate? What is our call volumes? Are we going to solve for those, or are we going to solve for customer satisfaction? What are we solving for here? What are our long-term goals and what are our short-term goals? And then what are the timelines associated with this goal? What is the urgency of achieving something, right? All of these are very good questions, and there can be more questions. This is not an exhaustive list, but really trying to go deep into your own business and what we do and how we partner and how we kind of sell. This also, I feel, apart from understanding traveler needs and understanding what user wants, is actually table stakes for us to build an experience strategy. And then how do we understand, how do we get answers to all of these questions, right? When I entered into an organization or when I entered into a new organization, I never come to know about all of these questions. So how do we get answers to all of these loaded questions that we don't have access to? I've realized in my experience is just kind of simply asking them, and asking them to either the person that we feel knows the answer. And if we don't have access to those people who know the answer, then try and get access either through your manager or through your leaders to really kind of say, this is what we want to know. right? The way that we have kind of done that in Expedia is holding, one of the examples is holding a brown bag session by our insurance business team. The team who actually partners with our insurance partners, like AIG and Generali. So like how can we, basically have our business team tell us what are the challenges they face and what do our partners want, why do they partner with us, and what are their motivations. So really having a brown bag session or 1 hour brown bag session with our business team really helped us open up the horizon of our understanding of the business. And there can be multiple other ways. There can be stakeholder interviews and so on and so forth. These, I would say, are the 4 primary tenets of building an experience strategy, right? There are 4 primary tenets in my experience. One is doing a really thorough internal and external analysis, and I'll go deep into what that means. Another is framing the right problem statements. Between internal and external analysis, I think I've very largely observed that teams have the propensity to run to ideation as soon as possible. If the design team can help the team focus on the problems and product team helps the team focus on the problems, that is a much more constructive discussion and a constructive outcome and a more creative outcome that you can get out of it. And it really helps us boil down to what we are trying to solve for. So framing is a very, very important part of building an experience strategy. Then definitely ideation, which is something that always is top of our mind. Like we have a lot of solutions brewing up in our heads. So how can we get all of those ideas and beyond those ideas on the table? How can we prioritize those ideas? Because strategy cannot be built around just plain concepts. It needs to be prioritized. We need to have a path towards reaching somewhere. And then I think this particular thing, which I've learned over the years, is like if we don't have a visual story associated with our strategy, because it is not a product strategy, it is a design and an experience strategy. So if we don't have a visual story associated with it, it usually doesn't have that much impact on anyone that we are telling it to. So using our skill, our superpower is what I call it, like the design superpower, to tell the story is one of the best things that we can do, for kind of building an experience strategy. So there are multiple toolkits multiple tools in a designer's toolkit, and all of these different phases of building an experience strategy that I spoke about, which is internal and external analysis, framing opportunities and hypothesis, ideation, and building a visual story. All of these can be done in so many different ways. There's no one size fit all. There is, like, I think once one of my product VPs, he was trying to solve a problem and there was a timeline associated with it. And he came to me and asked, Akansha, can we try and understand like how we can do this? Maybe like this is the goal we want to achieve in, let's say, a quarter or 3 months, or like, so how can we do that? And I had a particular process in mind. I think what I've realized in that process is don't try and fit the same process everywhere. You have multiple ways of approaching that same process, and how do you approach it really makes a lot of difference in how you also come across as a very strong designer or a design leader and a thought partner on the table, because you can use multiple toolkits to really come to a very meaty experience strategy and an outcome in any amount of time that you get, right? So again, all of these internal and external analysis, I'll not go into the depth of it because this is something that is totally available on Google, and I will also share the presentation, but there are so many different ways of achieving this, and totally depends on the stage of your product, the business goals that you want to achieve, the timelines that are there at stake, how soon do we want to achieve them, and what is the expected outcome that the business and the product wants, right? Having a view of all of these can help us choose what tools do we use to really build that strategy. So here, when I'm going to share a few examples, I'm going to show different tools that we have used to build that strategy. And those strategies were built in very different timelines. So let's get to the meat of it. And the first project that I wanted to talk about is really building an experience vision for a new product launch. So this is something that we did with a large team. There were 10 product managers involved. There were 15 designers involved. Like pretty much a big team was involved there. They were participating, and the core team was 4 designers. We had a decent enough timeline of 2.5 months to build this strategy. And I want to highlight that these kind of projects are not everyday projects. These projects come at situations where, and at instances where we want to really solve very meaty product problems. And there is no easy way to get to an answer there, right? So we were trying to kind of launch a product, 0 to 1 product in the market. And the key challenges that we were facing were that this product was a horizontal product, which means that this product touched every part of the traveler journey in every line of business. So partnership with all line of business was important aspect of building this and launching this product. And then our space is insurance space. So we were catering to a lot of overlapping user needs from these different line of business. So how do we marry our needs with the needs that they have identified for the travelers to create a more cohesive strategy? So it was complex at multiple levels, and hence there were so many product managers and designers from various teams. This is not just one team, various teams getting involved there. And the business goal was very, very straightforward. It was basically launch this new product in a 6 months time frame, and have a desirable baseline attached that they had kind of benchmarked basis the market data. And we had existing products already in the path. So how can we reduce the cannibalization of other insurance products by launching this new product? And then, of course, customer satisfaction was a big part of our goal as well. We want to make sure that the product that we are selling is actually creating value for the users who are buying it. So the first phase of building the strategy is as I mentioned, immerse. And I think before even get to the immerse stage, this is step 0, I would say, in this one. Because this was a huge project and it took us 2.5 months to really build this strategy, we wanted to make sure that our stakeholders and our partners, our leadership, we understand their expectations and we understand their needs out of this particular exercise that we were about to embark on. So we held a very small 30 minutes session with our stakeholders, and we said, okay, what do you need from this workshop that we are going to do to build the strategy? What is, and ask them to really like put in what their thoughts are. And then we also kind of held a hopes and fears session with them where we say, okay, what are your hopes from this workshop and what are your fears? So here we got to understand the outcome, the expectation from our leadership, from our partners. And in the hopes and fears exercise, we got to understand what they really hope and what they are skeptical of. Like we got a lot of, we think that maybe something very long-term comes out of this particular exercise that we are unable to build. Maybe it's not, like compliant with legal and things like these. And those were important things for us to understand, because then we want to make sure that the outcome that we create actually touches upon some of the fears also and ensures that that is taken into consideration. So this was a really helpful exercise to have been conducted with our partners. And then we planned it, right? Like planning in such is important stage of all of these different, experience strategy sessions, because this was a huge one. So we divided into 3 stages. And in these three stages, we kind of encompassed all the four tenets that I spoke about earlier: immerse and frame and ideation and like visualization. All of those are kind of encompassed within these three stages. The first stage was visioning, right? Basically, go into the workshop for 3 days with our partners, with cross-functional team members, define the problem statement, define and create a lot of ideas on the table, and also choose some of the top ideas they think are going to make sense holistically in the journey. So this was a workshop, 3-day workshop thing that was stage one. Stage two is a design jam. So this was the visualization exercise. After the workshop, we got a bunch of top ideas selected from the workshop. Now, those are just like a bunch of post-its or a bunch of very rough sketches that we got. How do we build a compelling story out of those rough sketches and post-its? So this design jam, 4-day design jam, was only focused with like 4 designers working on creating a storyline around all the ideas that we selected. And stage 3 was leadership review of those concepts and getting their feedback, conducting research on some of the selected concepts, and then finally building a vision board of this is how we want to see our experience evolve further. So this was scoping and selection in different ways from a business and a traveler perspective. Again, as I mentioned, too many participants, very large workshop, and then 6 time zones, which was a huge problem as well, because obviously we had to run it in bits and pieces, and we wanted to make sure that everyone could meaningfully contribute. So this was a huge problem in itself as well. So the first stage, again, immerse. We held this workshop in a Miro board because obviously it was virtual, it was 6 time zones kind of coming together. So we had this Miro board where we preempted all the materials, and I've just grayed out the material because of sensitivity. But basically you can see like there is a bunch of readout material that we have laid out in the Miro board, which helped everyone in the immerse stage from different teams to come together and present their point of view, their strategy. So just for an example, if insurance does need to be sold on flights, then the flights team and insurance team will come together to actually talk about their side of product strategy and what they are trying to do, what they are trying to solve for, what are their metrics. And we will also share what we are trying to achieve so that everyone in the room can be on the same page around what our goals are and how we can effectively marry those goals in some way or the other, and be conscious of each other's goals when we are executing on some of our KPIs. So this was like a quick Miro board exercise, and we had this step totally focused on just sharing and taking notes by the participants. The second step, again, a part of the workshop, was really going traveler-centric. So we read out a lot of research material in this workshop. We synthesized a lot of research and we read that out for all the participants. And we also laid out a traveler journey for the participants. So this was an activity that we conducted where we asked all the participants to mark the user needs and pain points across the journey. Where do they feel those needs and pain points exist? So this was that exercise that helped them put them in traveler shoes and help to think about the product in a very traveler-centric way. And the second exercise was framing of problem statements or hypotheses. Now, being in the light of all of these user needs, now it becomes really important to now talk about what do we want to solve for. And this was again like a 20-30 minute exercise where we asked each participant, we kind of had breakout groups because it was a large session where each group got a particular opportunity space to brainstorm on. And, they kind of brainstormed on just how might we statements. We did not encourage ideas in this one. We just asked the group to talk about problems and also had a facilitator facilitator to help the group think about problems, because it's not one of the easiest things to do in our experience. So kind of how can we enable the team and the group to think about problems? And this was a pure play ideation exercise. Again, I think this is one of the most fun and easiest exercise to do, because we kind of got everyone together. We created some themes out of all the hypotheses that everyone shared. We deduplicated all the hypotheses and created like theme 1, theme 2, that okay, this is the larger, this is how the larger how might be, or a problem statement or problem mission kind of looks like. And then we asked that the breakout group, and the breakout group was also a mixed breakout group, to ideate on some of those themes. Again, each group were dedicated to different how might we themes, because obviously it's a very time consuming process, and we wanted to make sure that there are different people from different teams being represented in those groups, so that we can have divergent thinking coming and divergent ideas coming from all of these different groups. So how we set up this group is important to ensure that the ideation process is very inclusive of everyone that is there, who can provide more divergent ideas on the table. And this is the design jam exercise that I was speaking about. We ideated, we got a bunch of ideas, and I think just going back in the previous slide, you can see some numbers associated with these post-its. These are actual votes that we did. We did a voting session on all of the impactful ideas, and the ones that got the highest votes made a way to the ideation exercise. So all the top 3 ideas or 4 ideas from each opportunity space went into the ideation exercise, went to the visualization exercise, where the 4 designers, they spent a week to visualize all of these concepts in the form of user stories, in the form of designs, concepts, flows. And this was again a very impactful exercise, because it helps us create a really good visual outcome of the workshop. And then this is the prioritization exercise, where we walked through all of these visual stories. I remember we had around 10 visual concepts coming out of it. And all of these alphabets that you see over here in these smaller dots are the concept names. So we numbered, we kind of categorized those concepts, and the color coding of the votes are based on the stream. Like there was XD, there was product, there was engineering in the room. So how can we kind of identify who thinks what in terms of effort and feasibility standpoint? And we kind of plotted it out in a graph and asked everyone to vote and create their votes after the presentation of the concepts. And this is the final stage, I would say. Like, after we had some bunch of concepts that were winning, we saw that they were kind of high impact, not too high effort. Those went into the phase 1 of the category, where we say, okay, this opportunity space, if we had like 6 opportunity space, and the phase 1, these were the ideas that were sort of high impact and low effort. And then the phase 2 ideas will be then, high impact, mid effort, and so on and so forth, right? Like, so we kind of build a path towards phase 4, which is the ideal state that we wanted our experience to go. So this is an experience evolution canvas that we usually create after the end of a big design swarm or a big design thinking exercise, that really helps the entire team to have an artifact to look at whenever they talk about where are we heading in the right direction. Use this as a talking point, use this as a way of having discussions. So we found this really helpful, and something that we created after the end of this particular exercise as well. All right, so that was about it, and I think this now project, the last project that I spoke about, obviously is in development and everything. So again, we are building only phase 1 right now. And yeah, like hopefully and overall from a storyline perspective, it is totally aligned with where we want to be. So that creates a sense of ownership on what we are building and a commitment towards that particular MLP solution that we are kind of going live with. The project 2 that I'll talk about is enhancing an existing product experience. It's usually the kind of projects that we come across on a very, very regular basis. We have an existing experience. We just want to kind of do some changes in that experience. We want to enhance certain features. In this particular project, it was a migration project. So we had to, our mandate or our requirement was we had to ship this project from one design language to another design language and sort of make minimal changes in the experience so that we can do a platform migration and not do experience changes a lot. The key challenges in this project was there was a lot of design constraints in the new checkout, in the new experience that we were shipping it to. So how do we navigate against those? It was a very limited scope of this project. And then there were a lot of supplier and legal constraints that we were dealing with as well. The timeline of this particular was 1 month. And 1 month of not just building a strategy, but also shipping out that feature, building the strategy in the process, and also being able to put some of the strategic views, forward-thinking views out for research. And there were 2 designers involved in this project. Before we embarked onto really creating a view of what we could do here, and of course, the need of the hour was just to do it one-on-one migration, right? So we knew that we didn't have the, I would say, the time or the bandwidth or the appetite to actually change a lot here. But being designers, we wanted to do the best we can and put our best foot forward in the constraints that we had in our that we are dealing with, and we basically set out to start with some design guiding principles. We created some design guiding principles to see if our experience that we are shipping out are adhering to what we think our designs should follow, right? What are we trying to achieve for the travelers and business? And if you look at these design principles, these are both product specific and traveler facing. So we kind of created these principles, and then this is the experience that we were dealing with. So we had to do a migration of our insurance product across line of business. So the screenshots that you see over here, they are very, very different screenshots across different line of business. Now, like when we saw all of these different versions of experience, these are so different from each other, and there was no reason why they were different. So we wanted to create a consistent experience across line of business. So that was one of the goals that we wanted to have. We wanted to have the latest content, because there was, if you can look at this experience, so much of content, so much of cognitive load on the travelers. It's very difficult to understand and comprehend why I should get this product. So we know that we had to do a one-on-one migration, but what we aligned product and business on was, let's at least create one benchmark of this experience and try and standardize this experience as much as possible, so that technically also we don't have to reinvent the wheel again and again and again. And I think that is a overall, not just a design win, it is both from a product and tech perspective, it could be a win as well. We had a lot of fear-based messaging here. So we tried and see if we can move away from those messaging in our migration. And then we had some features that were obsolete, like some messages that were obsolete that didn't make sense, like COVID messaging that is there on the top. That didn't make sense. So we said, okay, why not we migrate without this? right? So I think these are the things that we thought as a team is okay for us to change when we do this migration. I'm not going to go into the depth of the design process itself because it's a very standard double diamond process that we followed. But eventually, you will see that this is our current proposal of design, right? This is almost one-on-one. We benchmarked one design. We said, okay, this is how it will look like into the new design language. And this is just a plain one-on-one vanilla migration with some of the changes that I just spoke about, less fear-based messaging, trying to kind of see visually if we can create less cognitive load on the travelers, highlight a few things and stuff like that. Basic. I think what we did also was, as a team, we created some future-looking concepts on this version. This is for now, but what next, right? We did some background research. We pulled in some data from research. We pulled in some background test data that we had earlier, that we had conducted tests on this particular experience. And then we said, okay, if we have to fix some of these bigger problems that exist in the experience, what that could be. And we branched those, we created 2 or 3 more concepts on the table that were more future looking. When we showed those concepts, and of course we showed the one-on-one migration, that kind of makes sense in the immediate goal. But when we showed along with this immediate goal, some forward-looking goals and some forward-looking experiences to our leadership, to our supply partners, it kind of rang a bell with them. Like they said, okay, yeah, like this makes sense. And I think what really helped us is not just saying it, showing it, that this is how it could eventually look like, feel like, and also be legally compliant. When we gave them these 2 concepts of food for thought, right? Because we had an opportunity in this project, we gave them a food for thought. And then it kind of went into research because everyone was highly supportive for us to kind of bake this into the plan and build a strategy around these concepts. These are something that have already, we have done a research on, and we are now plugging them into our overall execution plan. So it has been some time that this project has been there, and now phase 2 is actually there in our execution plan. In fact, our leadership wanted us to try and get from the current proposal to phase 2 as soon as possible. So like probably even question phase 1. Do we need, like, can we take more risk and kind of go here? So I think these kind of discussions with leadership, what I've realized helps in also expanding everyone's horizon as to the possibilities, and also opens up, I would say, newer opportunities in the space. And this can happen sometimes, might not happen in a few times, but creating a view, if possible, and creating a visualization around it really helps. So that was that, like, very, very small project and just a very enhancement project. The third project that I wanted to talk about is basically there was a need for building a business and product strategy. It was being formulated. Our team was juggling in a financial crisis, and we wanted to kind of understand how business and product can contribute positively in that state. The goal was to get as much attach as possible, and we wanted to make sure that even experience design plays a great role and a positive role in this entire equation. So we wanted to understand how we can positively impact the attach rate of our vacation rentals insurance product. And this project actually took us 1 week. It was a very, very quick and dirty execution and strategic thinking. Of course, we used very different tools here when we started looking at building a strategy here. We didn't have time to conduct a generative research. We didn't have time to conduct a lot of researches. So we banked on our existing research data. We banked on our feedbacks that we already had in our system to really come and think about what we can do forward looking here and propose something to the leadership. So here, as I spoke about, we used all existing research, all existing materials. to do our internal and external analysis. This is the way we kind of use our tools very differently to ensure that we are able to do something constructive in some of the time limitations that we get, because that's the reality of business and that's a reality of situation that we always as designers never get the maximum or the ideal time that we would want and need to kind of get the work done, right? So how can we make the best use of the time that we had? And sometimes also, a little bit of work can also help us push those boundary of timelines. If our partners see the value of investing a little bit more time, they will invest a little bit more time, right? So how can we show them that value through a minimal work and then buy in that more time that is needed? So the experience, what we really did over here was, because we didn't have time to actually go through a lot of research and conduct a research, we did an experience review of our current product. So what we did was we went through the flow. The entire design team had a very small workshop. We went through the flow of the experience and we just jotted down all the experience audit comments from all the designers, and kind of created this view of what we think are the gaps in our current experience. Now, this experience audit can be done in various ways. In our organization, we also use our existing partners from different teams to use the experience, and then we actually have very non-lead. We just observe them, we ask questions to understand their behavior, and it is a very lightweight way of understanding some of the gaps in the experience. And the other way of doing an experience review that we kind of use is doing just a plain heuristic audit. What is it like? Just plain heuristic audit in terms of design and understanding where the opportunities lie in terms of experience. And then we also dug up a lot of past test data that we had documented. So we dug up a lot of past data, and when we understood what tests have been run in the past and what were the results and outcome, so that whenever we saw a winning test, we can see, okay, these are the things that, like, we can draw some parallels out of it and kind of implement that into our experience strategy as well. The second thing that we did was defining the opportunity areas and hypotheses. Again, quick and dirty exercise. We had a very quick workshop with product partners, and we said, okay, this is the data that we have. We showed them everything. We showed them our current experience. We showed them our data. Excuse me. And then basically did a how might we statement exercise with them in a matter of an hour. Didn't take a lot of time. It helped everyone get on the same page of the experience. It helped everyone get on the same page of what are the challenges, and also ground their thinking on research and traveler insights that we have leveraged from the past. So this exercise really helped bringing everyone in. And then step 3 was just kind of creating some ideas based on the audit, based on the hypothesis that everyone has built together. And this is something that was a pure design exercise. We created this presentation where we said, okay, these are the experience and content opportunities within the VR, the vacation rentals insurance space, and then did a complexity and impact mapping of these ideas along with tech and product. So this kind of brought in a very compelling story to the leadership. And this is what we showed to them. So basically we said, okay, this is the idea and this is the ROI. We have data analyst friends who helped us get to the ROI of each of the opportunity and the ideas that we were pitching. And this data was very, very compelling for the business. If we just talk about gaps, that doesn't resonate well. But if we talk about numbers, it does resonate. Excuse me, I'm going to drink a little bit of water. Okay, thankfully we are towards the end of my presentation. I don't have to speak a lot probably. Um, and then we built experience roadmap based on all the prioritization that has happened in the earlier step. We chose the ideas that had higher ROI and lesser effort. We chose some of the top ideas, and then basis that we created an experience roadmap where we obviously created this in collaboration with product and tech to map out where do we want to implement what idea, and where, like, literally like a sprint plan with them. Like, when can we hand it off to engineering, and when can engineering pick it off, and when can we launch, right? So this was again a very powerful way of executing on the strategy. And we feel that this really helps, like having a combined view of the roadmap with design, tech, um, approvals needed, and everything in under one view really helps everyone be on the same page around expectations, and know exactly, like not have unrealistic timelines, like know exactly when something realistically can be shipped. And if the desire is to ship earlier, then we have to tweak our ways of executing on it, right? So it works both ways, but yes, it brings about a good discussion point for the entire group. So I would say towards the end, I would say from all of these projects and beyond these projects, just in my experience from a leadership standpoint, I think there are some key takeaways overall that I've come across. One is understanding business goals and leadership expectation is really key and should ground the experience strategy. Understanding the traveler needs is something that is expected and table stakes for designers and the design team and the research team. But how do we understand the business goals and leadership expectation is also something that should be considered table stake as well. And it really empowers the designers in the room to talk in the language that is more understood and pitch the products well. Um, uh, one of few of my best friends have been data analysts, and the reason is that, like, I think we can be very powerful when we work with data analysts, because they can help us create a view of how powerful our ideas are, how powerful is the change that we are trying to make is. It can also be a sanity check for us. We might be thinking our ideas are extremely powerful, but maybe they are not, right? So it works both ways. I think they keep it's good to have a data analyst as a friend. Um, we've also realized that getting our toughest stakeholders in a room is really very empowering for them and for us. They actually surprise us with a lot of great insights, a lot of great creative thinking. So put a framework in place and let them come and play in that framework. I think it's amazing how they also feel empowered and included in the overall design process, and how the designs that come out of it has a more combined sense of ownership between the team members. Visual storytelling is critical to telling a compelling story and a compelling experience strategy. So I think this step is sometimes missed and step is sometimes subdued. I feel as an experienced designers, experienced researchers, without being able to tell a compelling story, we won't be able to pitch our design ideas and the way forward in terms of experience well to our stakeholders. And sometimes people will not ask you to build an experience strategy, right? Like sometimes there are just things to get done. How you do them and how you visualize them is a part of your role, and how you build a strategy around it. So I think finding those right opportunities to pitch it and do it, in sometimes a lightweight way, sometimes in a heavy, more time consuming way, whenever the need of the hour is that really helps. So really finding those opportunity where we feel that we can tell a more compelling story and we can add a lot on the table. I think we should use those opportunities. Maybe not every opportunity is to actually tell that story. So really identifying those opportunities well is something that I've learned along the way. that's it. I hope I was within time, but took the entire hour. Yeah, over to you, Harris and Sanchita.
Thanks, Akanksha. So thanks for this very, very insightful sharing. I think a lot to learn for, especially for designers and researchers here. And a lot of people has joined this sharing also through the live streaming. We have one question on in the chat, but we would welcome more questions in the chat in case if you have questions, or feel free to unmute and ask questions as well. But first, we'll take the question in the chat. You can also see the question, Akanksha, is from Kuldeep, who's from UX Army, and his question is that that in the visioning workshop where there's the software developers involved. Is that what you want to ask, Kuldeep? And if yes,
Yeah. Thanks, Kanksha, for the great presentation. Just wanted to check, like, developers are always, for me, a hard nut to crack. So just want to check with you whether it was possible for you to engage developers in your workshop, especially the envisioning workshop that you mentioned for project one.
Yes, absolutely. So I wouldn't say so we have to choose whom we want to involve from the development team. We involved architects, people who are actually defining the platform and the structure of the platform into the workshop. It is absolutely key to involve them in the workshop because they will help us understand the challenges that are there in the inherent backend systems that we have to navigate to achieve a particular goal, right? So we involved two architects, one from our team and another from the partner team in the workshop. There were not a lot of engineers involved, but there were two architects who had a very thorough understanding of the platform and how things are structured in the backend. And absolutely that's crucial. And I feel like when you put even architects in this framework of thinking, then they also ideate. They also, like, they don't only talk about challenges, right? Like, I feel they ideate, they also explore the creative side of thinking. And sometimes the one of the greatest and most creative ideas have come because of partnership with engineering team, right? So I feel it's absolutely critical to involve them, and we did involve a few engineers in a process.
Okay, that helps. In fact, when you mentioned the level of engineers that you involved is also useful, because you're right, like not every developer would like to join such calls and so on. So that's what got me curious.
Exactly.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the clarification. And if I may ask one more question, let me just check if there are other questions in the chat. Okay, so one of the other questions that I had was usually, let's say you said, data analysts are your best friend. So this is retrospective of the data, right? So how do you see that as being helpful for future features?
It is, so honestly, it is not just retrospective. I think so. Data analysts can also help us that when we are doing a review of a particular experience, like in case of the experience that I was talking about, where we did an audit, data analysts can also help us understand where people are dropping off, where people are engaging, like what is the current reality of the product, right? So understanding that, like if we feel like I'll share hypothetical but still a data that, like if we had a push notification and we had 40% of people clicking on that push notification, but only 2% of people actually going through the flow and doing that thing, right? Like what we are asking them to do, we were asking them to fill a form and we had a push notification, so 40% of people found it useful, they clicked on it, but 2% actually did it. So that's a very powerful insight that helps us know where the problem is, at least directionally know where the problem is, and design something that can help us fix that problem. People are like, it really indicates that people are not finding the content that they expect on that page, and they are dropping off. So yeah, I mean, I think it can help us in the future direction as well, not just retrospective.
Okay, I get it. Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thanks a lot again.
Most welcome.
Thanks, Kuldeep. Any other questions from anyone else who's joined in? Okay, if there's no other questions, we are dot on time, I think. So then we'll thank Akanksha, and thanks everyone else also for joining us. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Akanksha. We will be posting this in our Design You community channel on LinkedIn. So yeah, and hope to see you also in person soon somewhere. Hopefully when you're visiting Singapore. So thanks
Thank
again
you so
for
much.
support.
Thanks for having me. And yeah, I mean, really looking forward to see you and meet you sometime later. And yeah, thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks, Akanksha. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye.